We're going to move on, though, into our final topic. And this is a topic, Mark, where we did this same similar topic for the Vikings during the preseason, and everyone seemed to love it. So let's do it again for the team that's been the hottest team and number one in our power rankings this week, the Dallas Cowboys. Mark, I'm going to ask you a simple question. Can Dak Prescott lead the Cowboys to a win in Super Bowl Lee?
Well, I mean, I think that if anyone's leading this team there, it's obviously Ezekiel Elliott more so than Dak Prescott.
Thank you. Thank you for answering it that way.
You're welcome. But
thank you.
Now, do I think that the Dallas Cowboys could get to the Super Bowl? Sure, they could possibly get there. Can they win it? I really don't think they can. I think it's just a lot of inexperience being Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott. A lot of inexperience out there. And that's a tough thing to overcome.
Especially in the playoffs.
Especially in the Super Bowl. It's a tough thing to overcome.
Well, I'm just talking about the road that they would have to go through to get to the Super Bowl.
And I think they're a really good team. I think there's a lot of good parts. And you look at some of these things. They got the best running game out there. Their passing game is fairly average. Their defense is actually impressing people. It's been better than it should be when you really look at it on paper. And man, did they know how to score points. You just look at Ezekiel Elliott run, and he can just get into the end zone and not have a single player touch him. That's fucking amazing. And that is the best part of this team. That's what makes everything better. Tony Romo aside, because, he's basically done. Tony Romo himself said, hey, you know what? I'm willing to sit on the bench as hard as it is for me to do that. I'm willing to sit on the bench because this is Dak Prescott's time right now. He's impressive. He's earned it. But this team is a great team. When it gets into the playoffs, that's when I think they will hit the struggle. That's when some of these other teams that are also really good teams, you can't ignore the fact that any team in the playoffs is going to be a good team. That's when some of these teams are going to, really make an effect. And Ricky, I mentioned to you before the podcast, even though the New England Patriots lost a game,
you wanted to put them at number one.
I wanted them to still be the number one seed because I thought about it and I thought, if Tom Brady and the New England Patriots were going to go up against Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott's Dallas Cowboys, I would put my money on the New England Patriots still. I would still say that the Patriots would win that game. And to me, that says they probably should be the higher ranked team out of the two. I still don't think anyone can beat the Patriots. So will they win? No, I still think at this point that Tom Brady is going to go and just give everybody the finger and win it all. But they can get there, maybe.
At this point in the season, I am so happy. Like, you guys, if you are an avid listener of Most Valuable Podcast or even the Onside Kick, you guys know my kind of thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys
this
year.
You hated Dak Prescott when he came out.
I still don't like Dak Prescott. And it's not a thing. It's more of a thing where I can't, it's one of those things where maybe it's the old man Widmer in me, even though I'm not that old, where it's like young kid come in, boom, instant success. But I have a petty side.
Unless it's Carson Wentz.
I have a petty side to me.
You love Carson Wentz.
He's fallen off, though, and he's going through some rookie struggles. I can't wait for Dak Prescott to have his rookie struggles because the one thing that we like, and this happens with numerous things around the league, hot rookies, the Wildcat when it first came out, Chip Kelly's offensive system for a few games. It was really hot. It was really good. Then we got some tape on it, figured out how to beat it. What's going to happen is right now you look at this schedule, and I'll run down it. Besides the division, there have been some close games. I'll say Washington, that was a close game. The Niners, that was a close game. Shouldn't have been a close game. The Niners aren't that good of a team. Yeah, you've had good wins over Cincy, who's not good. The Packers were struggling. Philly is a good team. The Browns aren't a good team. That's an easy win. Pittsburgh is struggling. And the one thing that, and I'm glad that you said, I'm at a point in this season where I am giving Dak Prescott respect for what he's doing because no rookie's ever done this. However, it's one of those things where I am not ready to crown their asses, to quote the late Dennis Green. And the reason why I picked out their closest games. Steelers, Philly, San Fran, and Washington. Closest wins. The Giant game was close as well, but in those close wins, Redskins, Niners, Eagles, and Pittsburgh, in 3 of them, what position, and I say position because really there was one wild card that scored one of them, what position do you think scored the go-ahead touchdown to give them the win?
Running back.
The running back. Zeke twice, Alfred Morris once. The only game that Dak Prescott won himself, I would say, is that Eagle game. Tying it up with a touchdown to Dez Bryant and then winning it with, I don't know how Jason Witten gets that wide open in the end zone. My point being, look back to this last week. If the Steelers, and this is my biggest, and this is bringing the Steeler rant into this, but I'll try to keep it quick in like 2 seconds. My biggest issue with the Steelers right now, they're not a disciplined football team. Too many penalties. It showed. They should have got a face mask penalty. They got one a few plays later. The next play, shot in the barrel, Zeke Elliott right through the line. We're walking off winners in D-Town, basically. If Pittsburgh was a little bit more disciplined of a team, we're putting Dan Bailey out there, and it might not have been in field goal range, and it might have been a miss, and you might have lost that game. I know it's a lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas, and I know Dallas fans are going to say, well, suck it, Ricky, we won. But when you get to the playoffs, and I kind of sound like Jim Mora, playoffs, the good teams show themselves, the Russell Wilsons, that Seattle defense, the Tom Brady's. These guys know how to play. And when I look at this conference, when I look at the other conference, I'm going to say no, they don't win the Super Bowl, because I'd say right now, if they play the Giants in the second round, they lose to the Giants. I know that Dallas fans are going to be like, well, if Terrence Williams got out of bounds, we'd be undefeated and the Giants wouldn't have beat us. But I think that defense is going to figure it out by the time they see you in the playoffs. And they got one more. The Giants have one more time to see you, so they're going to have 2 times and extra film to figure you out. The Seahawks, I don't think Dak can figure them out. And then the biggest of them all, the 2 teams in the AFC, I think would beat the Cowboys, the Chiefs, and the Patriots. I don't think Dak Prescott goes up against Tom Brady and comes out alive. I don't think that happens.
Well, I think you're putting a lot of it on Dak Prescott too, and I think that, you know, for you thanking me for mentioning Zeke,
well, you're
putting a lot on him.
He would have. Well, it would become one of these things. If I'm going to use the Seahawks and the Giants, and this is a game plan that I think in the playoffs, their teams are going to issue. Zeke's the one winning games. We're going to shut down Zeke, and we're going to force you to throw the ball. We're going to double coverage Dez or double coverage Cole Beasley, because fucking Dak Prescott don't like to throw to Dez all the time. We're going to take away your favorite target. We're going to take away Zeke. You beat us. And that's what it's going to come down to. And, hey, if he proves me wrong and he has a big play in the playoffs and everyone's hoisting him on his shoulders, then go ahead. I just don't think he gets past I don't think that offense, I'll say offense because it's not all him, it is a team. I don't think that offense gets past the defense like the Giants or the Seahawks. And I don't think, because the Patriots aren't really a top defensive team, I don't think that Dak goes mano-a-mano with Tom Brady and comes out alive. I just don't think it. And the Chiefs, they might not be sexy, but their defense comes to play. And Alex Smith or Nick Foles could probably get the job done. Until
a team can show me that they can stop Ezekiel Elliott, I'm not going to believe that any team really can. This is the best offensive line in football. You know, maybe you want to throw someone else in there, but I'm going to say this is the best offensive line in football.
It is. It is. Who did you think I was going to throw in there?
No, I'm just saying to people in the comment section because they're going to stand by their team.
Yeah. No, well, this is the best offensive line in football.
So you have this best offensive line. So Ezekiel Elliott's doing great. He's the 3rd most rushing yards by a rookie, and so far in these 9 games. Dak Prescott only throwing 2 interceptions, 14 touchdowns. That's obviously helped out a lot by Zeke. But when you're saying that a defense is going to say, you got to come and beat us, it's one thing to say that against someone who has shown some struggles or someone we're not sure about. And Dak Prescott can surely show some struggles, but so far he's done none of that. He's not shown the struggles. I mean, sure, the Dallas Cowboys have gotten lucky here and every now and then, but they're still doing really, really well.
I'm not saying even on a luck standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying it just look at their strength of schedule for this year. They do not have that strong of a strength of schedule. Their strength of schedule, 3-7-8.
Mm-hmm.
That is the lowest of any team in the NFC. And I'm just going to take a peek. The only other team that has a lower strength of schedule than them is the Baltimore Ravens at 3-7-5.
They get to play this week.
That is, and I look at that and I go, that might be a big reason.
It could.
Why the Cowboys
remember the Chiefs
are
not
where
too
they're
long
at.
ago. The Chiefs were kicking ass, and I kept telling people strength of schedule is a big thing here. But sure, that's definitely something to it. But I don't think that as good as this team is, because when we were in the offseason, whatever was happening, I was still telling everybody on the podcast that this is the best place to play. It really is because of this great offensive line, because of a guy like Dez who's being completely underutilized. Witten out there. The defense is, okay, but they will survive. They're not a bad defense. It's a perfect place to play. It's definitely a spot you want to be. And the Dallas Cowboys, when Tony Romo was still healthy, they were a Super Bowl favorite. People thought they were going to the Super Bowl. Dak Prescott's come in there and done really well. I picked them to win a Super Bowl, and then Tony Romo gets injured. Kiss of death. For sure. Dak Prescott's done really well, and suddenly, I don't want people to get too high on them because he's a rookie, but I don't want people to suddenly go, there's no fucking chance, because he's really not doing that much worse than Tony Romo would have done. He just doesn't have the experience or the absolute cannon that Tony Romo has.
And the first thing you said, the experience. That is my big, and I'm not saying, when I say there's not in my mind, there's not a chance the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. I am not saying that as a knock on Dak Prescott. I am saying that as a knock on, that is the biggest thing this season that I think will come to bite the Cowboys in the butt. And it's not going to be like we could have avoided it. It's just going to be, you're going to go up against a pretty damn good defense and a pretty damn good team. Really, on the NFC side right now, I think it's going to be the Seahawks. I think it would be NFC title game, Seahawks Cowboys in Dallas. Richard Sherman, the first time Dak is going to see a defense of that caliber, because you look at the remaining schedule and the schedule that they've had so far, the toughest defense that Dak has had to play, and he'll play them twice, is the Giants. I mean, the Vikings too. So Giants and Vikings would be the toughest defenses that they're going to face this year. I mean, yeah, the Eagles' defense has been good this year, but they're not legendary. The Seahawk defenses, there's a reason they're called the Legion of Boom. There's a reason why multiple of those players have stuck around to build almost a dynasty in Seattle. I think that's the team. That is my one team that I think the Cowboys are going to run into in the playoffs, and they lose to them.
Which is worth mentioning, because the playoffs, of course, ended today. You got the Giants and the Lions playing each other, and the Redskins and the Falcons playing each other. Falcons, I think, would beat the Redskins. The Lions-Giants, that's kind of a toss-up. I'm more likely to personally give it to the Lions than the Giants. So I think, honestly, the Cowboys could beat either the Lions or the Giants, whichever one they would get. And I think that the Seahawks would beat the Falcons. So I think that they would potentially play the Seahawks in the NFC Championship game in this case. If it all ended today, obviously it doesn't. But that's who I would put up against each other. And I definitely would be leaning to pick the Seahawks over the Dallas Cowboys in that case.
Well, and here's an example I'm going to use. And of course, this is, people are going to say, well, Ricky, this is you trying to use an example to help your case, but I just want to throw it out there for the people that think, oh, Zeke is on such a roll, he cannot be stopped, look at Adrian Peterson 2015. 14, almost 1,500 yards that season, 11 touchdowns. Pretty good season from a running back. Goes to the playoffs. Who does he play in game number 1 at home? Seattle, 23 touches, only 45 yards. This is a team that and that's why they're the team in the NFC that I think is going to be the one to, they're going to be the only ones that are going to be able to beat the Cowboys right now because of that defense, because they've done it before. And Adrian Peterson's a pretty good back. It's not like I'm comparing Zeke to chop liver.
No, yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm in the NFC. I'm not willing to really put any of these teams in there yet. I think there's too much toss up in the NFC. I think the AFC is pretty dominated by 2 teams at the moment. But that would, of course, Patriots and Chiefs.
Just 2 teams?
Patriots or Chiefs are my top team in the AFC right now.
You're totally throwing Oakland and Denver to the side. The other 2, 7-2, 7-3 teams.
If we're gonna complain about one with Pittsburgh, your main issue with Pittsburgh is they're an undisciplined team.
That's the Raiders.
And then that's the Raiders, exactly.
And then the Broncos have an easy schedule.
Then I'm not going to give those 2 credit. I think the Chiefs deserve a lot of credit, mostly because when you go back into last season too, oh my God, is this team on a roll? And then Tom Brady. That's all I got.
Well, then, yeah. I mean, the Raiders, to me, you look at this Raider team, and they're the anti-Cowboys. You look at them, they don't have the best offensive line in football. Pretty good offensive line, but not the best. Their defense is better than it was at the beginning of the season, but really, they're doing as well as they are because of a man called Derek Carr. Basically, the exact opposite of the Cowboys, where, yeah, Dak's been good, but we're talking about it's been a team effort. It's been the running back. It's been the offensive line. And then the Broncos, it's like, I don't know how you win some of these games. I don't know how you pull the rabbit out of your hat, but you end up doing it, and eventually that's going to come to bite you in the butt. But I think the Raiders are a team to watch because it's going to be interesting to see how far
they've got
Carr
one of the
can
best
take 'em.
running games, one of the best passing games. They score a lot of points. They need to get some discipline on that team because it's not very often you can break a record for penalties against you and still win. You're not going to do that in the playoffs. I mean, just look at the Bengals last year. Only reason the Bengals didn't win a playoff game was because penalties.
And the one season I was really looking at for AP was the record-breaking season. That's the one I was trying to find where he had the over 2,000 yards. Gets over 2,000 yards in a season, only 99 yards against the Packers in a playoff game. So it's one of those things where just because of how well a team does in the regular season doesn't mean that's going to carry over into the postseason. But Mark, as we kind of end this and the entire podcast, I will ask you one last time for your answer. Are the Cowboys going to be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy in Houston at Super Bowl Lee?
No, they will not.
I'm going to say the same thing. I say they do not. I would put my chips in the Patriot basket if I'm going off of a Super Bowl champion right now, but that is just me. I think you might be on the same side.
Yeah, I think that the Patriots are one of the best teams. We might have a rematch from a couple years ago with the
Patriots Seahawks.
Yep.
I don't know what I would think about that Super Bowl, but you guys tell us down below what you guys think about the Cowboys, Dak Prescott, this team. Can they make the Super Bowl? Can they win the Super Bowl? What teams in the NFC stand in their way? What teams in the AFC could stand in their way in that Super Bowl game? Let us know also what you would think of a Patriots-Seahawks rematch, what Mark threw out there right at the end. I want to thank you guys all for listening to the Onside Kick. Go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Hit that follow button if you are on Blog Talk Radio. Also, check out our Patreon page right down below in the description. You love the podcast. You're like, whoa, Ricky, I want to see your and Mark's faces like we did for the draft podcast. What's going on? I want to see your faces. Check out the Patreon podcast. That's a way for you guys to help out the channel and make sure that we can do cool things like video podcasts each and every week. I want to thank you guys again for checking out this podcast, giving us a moment of your time. And as always, Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this MVP podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Most Valuable Pod for more great podcasts.